$100 million U.S. fighter jet shot down by Iran, then this happened? It was a kind of incident no one thought possible. Not in this decade, not with this jet. A U.S.-built, Israeli-operated F-35 stealth fighter was reportedly shot down over Iran. The headlines came fast. Then the blurry footage surfaced, jagged, indistinct, but unmistakable. Wreckage, burned fuselage, a silhouette twisted and broken in the dust, and somehow, undeniably, shaped like an F-35. In moments, the myth shattered. The most expensive fighter jet in the world, the most advanced, the one symbol of Western air dominance, now a pile of scrap. Iran claimed the kill, and the world held its breath. This wasn't just another aircraft. This wasn't a Cold War relic or an outdated platform outmatched by new threats. This was the F-35 Lightning II, the crown jewel of American aerospace engineering, designed to slip past enemy defenses, built with fifth-generation stealth, sensor fusion, and unmatched battlefield awareness. And yet it had fallen. The questions came fast. How? Why? Was it real? No confirmation from the U.S. No denial from Israel. Just silence. And in that silence, the narrative bloomed. Iran claimed it had used a passive radar network. Covert sensors not broadcasting, but listening. Detecting the subtle emissions that stealth jets try so desperately to hide. If that's true, the implications are historic. Because the F-35 was never supposed to be visible. That was the whole point. Coated in radar-absorbent material, engineered to evade, structured to scatter signals. Its entire existence built around the promise. You can't hit what you can't see. But stealth, it turns out, isn't invisibility. It's conditional. And in this case, those conditions collapsed. The fragility of the F-35 stealth is no secret in defense circles. It needs perfect angles, minimal payloads, flawless coatings. Every element must work in concert, or the radar cross-section balloons, revealing the jet like a ghost uncloaked. Maybe the Israeli F-35 was carrying external tanks. Maybe it dipped below the radar horizon too long. Maybe the coating degraded. Scorched by sun, peeled by weather, nicked by wear. Or maybe Iran really did make a breakthrough. Passive radar, heat tracking, algorithmic fusion of surveillance data, pulled from dozens of emitters. Whatever the method, the outcome was the same. The jet was found. The jet was hit. The jet went down. And with it, something far larger fell. Confidence. Because this was never just a question of one aircraft. It was a test of a doctrine. For 2 decades, the U.S. and its allies built their strategy around the F-35. Not just air superiority, but air invulnerability. Buy the jet, and you get more than an aircraft. You get an insurance policy. A guarantee that your skies are protected, your enemies blind, your forces safer. And now that policy had a hole in it. It wasn't just Israel and the U.S. feeling the aftershock. Across Europe, Asia, and the Gulf, militaries running F-35 fleets reeled. South Korea, Japan, the U.K., Poland, Norway, and they all asked the same question. If Iran can do this, who else can? Stock markets noticed. Defense contractor shares slipped. Procurement talks slowed. Allies who once saw the F-35 as a future-proof investment began weighing the risk of a vulnerability they hadn't budgeted for. And then came the second blow. Silence. The U.S. didn't respond. Israel didn't clarify. No denial. No retaliation. No wreckage retrieval op. Just a void, strategic ambiguity that only reinforced the worst-case scenario. Because if it weren't true, the Pentagon would have said so. Instead, they said nothing, which meant Iran owned the narrative. For once, it wasn't America telling the world how advanced its technology was. It was Iran showing it had brought that technology down. And while the military implications were serious, the psychological effect was worse. The F-35's mystique had been broken, and with it, so too was the unshakable perception of American air dominance. Because when your best gets shot down, everything beneath it comes into question. This wasn't the first time the F-35 had been scrutinized. Critics have long pointed to its limitations. Its speed, just above Mach 1. Its agility, inferior to older 4th-gen fighters. Its short internal weapons bays that limit payload in stealth mode. Its reliance on flawless software maintenance and data links. In many ways, it's a compromised machine, a master of surveillance, integration, electronic warfare, but not a raw brawler. It's built to avoid fights, not win them head-on. And in a world where threats are multiplying, hypersonic missiles, passive radars, drone swarms, the value of avoidance is shrinking, because eventually someone sees you. And when that happens, the F-35 doesn't have the legs to run, the claws to dogfight, or the armor to take a hit. It dies. That's what happened near Throne. And whether it was a failure of the pilot, the system, or just a glimpse of the future, what matters is that it happened. The incident is a loud warning that stealth, once thought to be untouchable, is now vulnerable. And if one vulnerability exists, others will follow. Iran won more than a kill that day. They won the information war. They exposed the psychological fragility of modern military tech. They proved that even the most expensive machines are not invincible. They reminded the world that in the end, war is still a contest of ingenuity, not just dollars. And maybe most important of all, they reminded the United States that over-reliance on any one asset, no matter how advanced, is a strategic flaw. Stealth cannot be the only plan, because stealth can fail. And when it does, you better have something else behind it. Fighters with raw power, electronic warfare systems that can blind an entire sector, multi-layered defenses that don't depend on one silver bullet. That's the future now. One where dominance isn't guaranteed by any one machine, but by the resilience of the whole. And if this shoot-down teaches anything, it's that U.S. strategy must evolve. More integration, more redundancy, more survivability. Because no matter how sleek your jet is, if it can be seen, it can be killed. And the battlefield doesn't forgive mistakes. The F-35 fell. And now, the real question isn't whether it was shot down. It's whether the U.S. military is ready to admit that even its greatest weapon can be defeated, and what it's willing to do about it. Because the future is watching. And so are your enemies. The F-35 hit the ground, and the myth hit the wall. And behind that wall, 1,000 assumptions, decades of strategy, billions in procurement, all suddenly vulnerable, not to warheads, not to force, but to reality. Because this was never just about one aircraft. It was about what the aircraft represented. The F-35 wasn't just sold as a 5th-generation fighter. It was sold as a revolution, a system of systems, a network node in the sky. A technological marvel with stealth so perfect, it would fly into the teeth of danger and come out the other side untouched. That's what the brochure said. That's what the Allies believed. And that's what Iran, on one very specific day near Throne, managed to break. Whether it was through passive radar, thermal tracking, lucky targeting, or an exploitable flaw in the jet's emissions, the result was the same. The F-35 was not untouchable. It was seen, and seeing in modern warfare is enough, because the second you're seen, you're in trouble. This realization hits hardest in war rooms, where commanders now must reconsider every deployment. Is an F-35 still the best option for contested airspace? Can it operate near integrated defense systems with new-gen radars? Or is its stealth profile now dated? If Iran can pull this off, what could China do? Russia? North Korea? What of the battlefield is no longer about who flies the best, but about who can detect best. And that brings us to the silent revolution, sensor warfare. Because that's where the true shift is happening now. Not in airframes, not in bombs, but in sensors. Passive radar doesn't broadcast signals. It doesn't send a ping out and wait for an echo. It listens, constantly, quietly. It waits for emissions from enemy jets, radio signals, transponder pulses, infrared trails, and then triangulates their position using existing civilian or environmental radio frequencies. The F-35, like all modern aircraft, emits something, even when it's stealthy. Its sensors are active. Its data links are constant. Its engines, while cooled and masked, still leave traces. If you have the right systems, you can find them. And the terrifying part is this. Those systems don't require massive missile bases or multi-billion-dollar investments. They can be built smaller, cheaper, installed on mobile platforms, disguised in urban environments, networked across a battlefield without ever emitting a signal. That means stealth isn't dead, but it's dying, slowly, in pieces. With every upgrade adversaries roll out, the margin shrinks. And now, one of the premier examples of stealth in action, the jet that costs over $100 million per unit to develop and field, has been proven vulnerable. That changes the game. U.S. air dominance has always depended on three things: reach, speed, and invisibility. Reach still matters. Speed? Debatable. Invisibility? No longer guaranteed. And so the U.S. has to adapt fast. Commanders can't assume air superiority by default. Air defenses are getting smarter. Detection systems are going dark and going deep. The playing field is changing, and doctrine needs to catch up, because this wasn't just a tactical loss. It was a strategic signal. It told the world that the West's most advanced warfighter can bleed. And when blood is drawn, shark circle. Just look at how quickly rivals responded. Chinese state media spun the narrative within hours. Russian analysts published breakdowns. Propaganda flooded digital spaces, exploiting the event to hammer home a single brutal message: your tech isn't untouchable. And for once, there was silence in return. No triumphant footage from the Pentagon. No Israeli rebuttal. No satellite images showing an intact jet flying home. Just absence. And that silence spoke volumes. It allowed adversaries to own the story. And in war, narrative is power. Because this isn't the age of total wars and decades-long campaigns. This is the age of perception. Fast, volatile, digital. A single event, if positioned right, can undo years of influence. Iran didn't just down a jet. It punctured the aura of Western invincibility. And that puncture was felt globally. Allied procurement officials in Tokyo. Strategic planners in Warsaw. Naval commanders in Canberra. All watching. All wondering. Is the F-35 still a future? And if not, what is? That question is now tearing to the corridors of power. And the answer isn't simple. Because what replaces stealth? Speed? Maneuverability? Electronic warfare? Swarm defense? Or something entirely new? The truth is, the world isn't going back to dogfights and visual range combat. That era is over. But the idea that a single machine could dominate the skies because it's simply too hard to detect, that idea is under siege. The new frontier isn't invisibility. It's confusion. It's saturation. It's deception. It's overwhelming your enemy's ability to process and respond before they even know what's coming. And that takes more than stealth. It takes architecture, which means the future isn't just about platforms. It's about systems. Integrating drones, jammers, satellites, decoys, cyber disruption, all into a single, seamless strike profile. The F-35 was supposed to be the star of that. But now, its weaknesses must be reevaluated, its role reconsidered, and maybe its replacement accelerated. Already, eyes are turning to the NGAD program, the U.S. Air Force's next-generation air dominance effort. This isn't just another stealth fighter. It's a system designed from the ground up to live in a world where stealth isn't invincible. It will incorporate AI, drone wingmen, hypersonic coordination, active camouflage, real-time adaptation to sensor networks. But that's still years away. And in the meantime, America must face the fact that its most expensive platform has lost its shield. Not completely, but enough. Enough to shake faith. Enough to inspire doubt. Enough to give adversaries new ideas. So what happens now? Do we double down on stealth, or do we pivot? That's the question the Pentagon is facing. And the answer can't wait, because the battlefield is evolving in real time, and hesitation is deadly. In the sky overthrown, a jet was lost. But more than that, a chapter ended. The age of unquestioned stealth dominance is over. And now, the next era begins. An era not built on invisibility, but on resilience, on adaptability, on overwhelming complexity. Because in the end, no aircraft is invincible. But strategy can be. if it sees the truth and evolves faster than the enemy ever expected. The F-35 was supposed to be the answer to everything. A flying brain with stealth as its skin, data as its lifeblood, and superiority baked into every inch of its frame. It wasn't just built to win wars. It was built to prevent them, to fly over contested zones without being seen, to gather intelligence while remaining untouchable, to strike first, hard, and from nowhere. It wasn't just a fighter. It was a message. But now the message has changed, and the silence after throne is speaking louder than any engine roar. Because when a $100 million machine can be defeated by a nation the Pentagon didn't even rank among top-tier peer competitors, every assumption is shattered, and not just military ones. This was supposed to be the plane that cemented American dominance for a generation. It was pitched not just to generals, but to Congress, to allies, to investors. Every NATO briefing, every international arms expo, every partnership deal came with a version of the same promise. Buy this plane and you buy certainty. And now, that certainty has cracks. Even if the downing was a systemic failure, even if it was a one-off, a tactical error, a perfect storm, the damage is done. Because war isn't just about who has the better gear. It's about who can convince the world they do. And Iran just sees that narrative. With a single missile or beam or round or radar signature or whatever it was that did the job, they show the world that American tech bleeds. Not in theory, in the dust, in fire, in wreckage. That's power. The kind of power that turns the head of an arms buyer in Ankara. The kind that makes a skeptical defense minister in Southeast Asia ask, what else are we not being told? And the implications ripple, because the F-35 wasn't sold as a standalone product. It was the center of a web, training packages, logistics chains, supply agreements, maintenance deals, intelligence sharing platforms. You buy the jet, you buy the ecosystem. But ecosystems only thrive when the alpha species is unchallenged. And right now, the alpha species just got caught in the open. This is more than a military event. It's a shift in trust. And trust is currency. The kind of currency that decides which defense contracts are signed, which alliances harden, which countries hedge their bets. So what happens now? The U.S. doesn't have the luxury of denial. Not anymore. Whether it admits the loss or not, the world has already moved on. The image of that downed fighter, whether real, staged, or exaggerated, has done its damage. Now, there's only one path forward. Adapt. First, by acknowledging that stealth is no longer enough. It's not obsolete, but it's no longer the trump card it once was. Not when detection systems are getting smaller, smarter, and harder to trace. Not when adversaries are learning to turn the air itself into a sensor field. Next, by rebalancing the air power doctrine. That means fewer assumptions about sanctuary zones and uncontested skies. It means redistributing combat roles to spread the burden across drones, EW aircraft, space assets, and next-gen support platforms. And most importantly, it means diversifying survivability. The F-35 was designed to survive by not being seen. Now, it must survive by being hard to hit even when seen. That requires a shift toward agility, toward redundancy, toward autonomous countermeasures and smart decoys that can fool even the best sensors, toward layered defenses not just around carriers or bases, but within the airframes themselves. We're talking onboard jamming, AI-managed flight rerouting, autonomous ECM pods that deploy the moment radar lock is detected, and we're talking speed. Because if you can't hide, you better move fast enough to avoid. Right now, the F-35 can't do that. Not at Mach 1.6. Not with that wing design. It was never meant to fight like that. But future systems will have to. Because the new threat isn't just anti-air missiles. It's awareness. The enemy doesn't need to shoot you down. They just need to know where you are. And once they know, they can plan, counter, trap, intercept. So the game becomes about delay, disruption, disorientation. Can you confuse their sensors long enough to complete your mission? Can you jam their data long enough to slip through? Can you inject false information into their network to make them doubt what they see? This is the future of air combat. And the F-35's fall might be the price of that lesson. But it's not the end of the road. Because every fallen system is a lesson. Every down fighter is a data point. Every failure, a pivot point for something stronger. What matters now is speed, not in the air, but in thought. Can the Pentagon admit its most advanced system was outpaced? Can the defense industry realign its priorities in time? Can Congress fund the right innovations before rivals exploit the window? And can the next generation of air platforms learn from this? Not by doubling down on stealth, but by evolving past it? That's what's at stake. And it's why this shoot down, if confirmed, will be remembered not just as a single tragic loss, but as a turning point. The moment when the sky, once a realm of dominance, became a realm of uncertainty. The moment when the U.S. Air Force had to choose between defending the past and building the future. And the moment when every rival state realized, maybe there's a crack in the armor. And if there's a crack, you probe it, you test it, you push, and you see if the empire flinches. So no, this isn't just about an F-35. It's about credibility. It's about what happens when the invincible becomes vulnerable. And it's about who adapts fastest now that the illusion has been broken. The skies have changed, and the countdown has begun.